Okay, hi everyone, so it's SmithyQ, back with another video analysis. I'll just take a moment first, just pat myself on the back. I finished my final law school exams this week, so I'm all done. Yay! Woohoo! The 3 years have just zoomed by. And then Matt, he told me to celebrate by making more chess content. So thanks, Matt. If you don't like the video, you know who to blame. So what are we going to talk about today? I want to discuss one of the general overarching concepts about chess, specifically tension. You may have heard of it before. Specifically, the advice is don't break the tension. But what does that actually mean? And why? How does it work? Well, I'm going to share in this video two things. First, how I understand tension, how I've internalized it, conceptualized it, and I'll try to explain that. And then, second, I'm going to share a game, which is one of the first games in which I really applied and used the idea of tension, and we'll see how it gave me a very good position quite quickly. So let's take a look. Let's dive in. And I suppose to start, we actually have to go all the way back to the beginning and really ask ourselves, when we make a move, what are we doing? What are we doing when we make a move? I know that sounds a little bit philosophical, but what I'm getting at, or how I view this, is every time we make a move, we're changing the position in some way. So here's the initial position. After e4, there's a whole bunch of changes. The pawn, it now controls a bunch of squares. The bishop, oh, it's alive. The queen's alive. The knight, even the king has an extra square to go to. Comparing this to this, the white army can do so much more. It has more potential. The simple way of explaining this is that we have improved our position. And really, that's the goal. Every time we make a move, we're trying to, at least, improve our position in some way. Now let's just look at this. This will be useful to explain the idea of tension. Now, if you were to look, well, this bishop, it's happy. This bishop, it's happy. This bishop, it's happy. This bishop is not happy. It wasn't invited to the party. It only has one square. But now watch what happens if white were to break the tension. Now, first, what is tension? Tension exists. It's a very wide concept. It can be applied to very many different things. But the simplest example and the most common, and the one where it's easiest to make a video about, involves exchanges. So here, these pawns have tension with each other because white, he could take any point, and if we're black's move, black could also take. And so there's actual mutual tension. Now watch what happens. If white takes, what do we see? Aha! The bishop's invited to the party. The bishop is happy. Woohoo! Does that favor white or does that favor black? Backing up, bishop not happy. Then after the exchange, happy bishop. And so by exchanging, what's really happened is white has activated black's bishop for him. By doing the exchange, black's position has gotten better. This is the general observation, is that time and time again, the person that initiates the exchange, that makes the first exchange, actually tends to benefit the other side. Now this isn't a huge thing, it's not as if black is now winning. But from here, where this bishop could barely move, to here, where the bishop can move just as much as every other bishop, certainly black has got the better end of the deal. But that's not the only thing. If we were to back up, let's look at the difference in white's position. If I just go back and forth, what do you see with white? Well, it's this pawn that disappears. And what does that mean? Well, right now, this pawn, sure, it could take, but also, it controls this square. Black can't put a piece there. You just imagine something like that. That's impossible. But also, it has the option of going to e5. If this knight ever wanted to go to f6, nope, white always had the option of moving. But after the exchange, that option is gone. doesn't exist anymore. And so we can actually see something. When you make an exchange, what happens is you're losing the potential of the piece that was exchanged, and very, very often, you're actually improving the opponent's position. And we can actually see something. It's even more fundamental than that. Again, I look at the first move, look at all the arrows, it improves the position. Sorry, let's look at this. Second move, okay, look, oh, same thing, it controls, this bishop's alive, boom, the king can go sure. It really improves. Look at how the pieces can do so much more. After the exchange, how does white's position improve? I'm staring blankly, nothing comes to mind, and that's because it's the answer. This move, taking the pawn by itself, it doesn't help our pieces move, it doesn't even help our pawns move. In fact, the only thing it does is stop our own pawn from moving forward. So, said another way, whenever we're making an exchange, we're not improving the rest of our position. Certainly not compared to playing e4, d4, knight f3, other moves that make our pieces better, it controls more territory, or it can push black backwards. When you make an exchange, that move, the actual exchange, again, doing this, isn't improving our position. Now, it might do other things. It might introduce tactics, it might have some sort of positional or strategic objective to it, for example, winning the two bishops, but the move by itself isn't improving the position. That's what I'm trying to get at. Or at the very least, the vast majority of the time, that's what happens. Does that make sense? Let's take a look at it in the game, where I try to use this idea to guide my thought process. We'll see it in action. And so the game, it actually starts, whoops, not the king. I was white, this game was played a long time ago, doesn't matter. This is actually a really good starting point, because the first time I heard about the tension, don't break the tension, I misinterpreted it. And I thought, okay, I will never make an exchange. That's not what it is saying. Really, think of it as a guideline. All other things being equal, you want to exchange last. Don't just make the knee-jerk reaction. Now in this position, for instance, the best move for black is undoubtedly the take. And the reason for that is because the other moves are bad. And you can calculate that quite quickly. Again, we just see the pawns attack twice. Can you defend the pawn? You know, d6, you're just going to block in your bishop. That doesn't look very good. f6, that looks worse. Holy cow. How else? You're going to do something like queen f6? Just walk into bishop g5? No. So the alternatives don't work. And so once you calculate that, sure, you can take. But in a position like this, taking from black is a terrible move. Even though I think it's actually now the most common move if you look at the Lichess Blitz database. And just look at this. See what happened when black exchanged? Let me just back up. From here to here. Look at the difference in black's position. Well, basically, black just loses this knight. That knight disappears. What happens with white? White's queen goes from sleeping on d1 to controlling the entire board, and black has really no good way of attacking the queen. If this knight were over here on c6, sure, it could go here, but it's not. It's over there. And other moves don't work, and black also has to be careful because something like bishop e7 could just hang the pawn. The reason this move, knight takes, it's bad, it's breaking the tension, but also there's so many other moves. Like, pick a developing move. Knight f6, bishop c4, even bishop b4, even queen h4 might be playable. There are a lot of options for black in this position without needing to exchange. And so this is where the idea of tension can help. If we have no choice, if everything else looks bad, sure, we make an exchange. But if we have even one other option, that's the option, more often than not, we should prefer. And we'll see the opening, it kind of follows this. My opponent ends up playing bishop c5, attacking my knight, basically encouraging me to take on c6. But I don't need to do that. I don't want to do that. I will say that taking on c6, this is one of the main lines. I didn't want to play that. I don't like the positions, but just more fundamentally, if I'm trying to use the idea of tension to guide my thinking, I need to be here, even in the first 5 moves. No, I'm not going to exchange. I'm going to defend. Black keeps attacking, I keep defending. I want black to be the one to take on d4. Because what would happen if, let's just imagine, take. Well, at the end of the day, because black is the one that initiated the exchanges, we can see it's actually my position that is improved. I now control the center. I got an easy spot for knight c3, bishop c4. I'm going to castle. Life is great. Black's only developed piece is his queen. I control the center. I'm happy. Black released the tension, and so his position got a little bit worse. Now, he didn't do that in the game. I'm just going to speed ahead a little bit. We're going to develop. He lost some time. Sure, why not? Right here. I distinctly remember this moment being the first time I really used the idea of tension. So we're white. We want to finish development. The knight hasn't moved yet. The natural square would be d2. Unfortunately, if you go to d2, it blocks the queen's protection. And now, black can mass exchange over here, and he's won a pawn. I talked about how we don't normally want to break the tension. Here is the big exception, is when there are tactics in the position. If you could calculate accurately that all the exchanges lead specifically, concretely to your advantage, in this case an extra pawn for black, then of course you do it. Again, I talked about one of my misconceptions. I stopped looking for these types of exchanges even when they were good. We don't want to do that. If you can win a pawn, great. So this means I can't play knight d2. So I could just exchange the knight, then probably exchange the bishop, and then play knight d2. That's an option. But again, that's me breaking the tension. I have just exchanged a bunch of pieces. I've opened up the rook for black. I've lost some of my development. And again, it's going against the idea of keeping the tension. Do I have something else? That's what I was thinking in the game. And so that's why I just developed the other side. Knight a3. No, it's not the happiest knight in the world, but it could go to c2, and then from there back into the game somehow, reinforcing everything, and we'll see what happens. But again, I'm just following the idea. Don't make the first exchange. Make my opponent. I'm trying to force him to do some exchanges. Now watch what happens. Watch how my position improves as I continue using this idea. My opponent, he attacks my pawn, defend the pawn. He played knight to e5. Now I could move the bishop again, but I don't wanna. I played f4. Take. See what happened? From here to here. In fact, I can go back even further. From bishop d3, before he moves his knight to e5, to here. What happens? Well, black's knight, it simply disappears. What about white? Now I've got the pawns in the center, queen sitting here, the rook can very quickly slide over, and we'll see that I'm almost fully developed with his king still in the center. Uh-oh. I'm gaining a lead in time. My position's a little bit better. Why? Because I coerced him to make the exchange. He's the one that exchanged. I gained some time. My position's getting better. Now you might say, what about the two bishops? And I'll say, whatever. Especially because I was much younger when I played this game, and I love knights. Knights are great. And now, again, keep watching the game. He castles. I improve my knight. He plays f5. Do we take? Taking would release the tension. Let's just imagine something. Take. Let's just do all the exchanges. Oh, bishop is attacked. His rook is now able to slide over. He gains some time. There's some threats like this maybe coming in soon. Black's position is much better. No, I would not even consider exchanging. So I want to do something instead. I could keep defending e4, but I decide to push forward. And look what happened. He's the one that made the exchange. Take. Do you see what happened? But I continually kept the tension. I did not make exchanges. In fact, I forced my opponent, I coerced him to make exchanges. And now look, I've got the two best knights in the board. These are by far the best pieces. I've got open files, which I'm going to dominate. He has, maybe I'll color them red, unhappy pieces that haven't entered the game. I've got this good position just by following the idea of tension. I'm not breaking it. I'm trying to get him to make the first exchanges. Beautiful position. I go check. I then throw my knight in forward. I coerce one more exchange. Look at this. I've got my major pieces on the E file. I'm attacking the knight. It's hanging. All my pieces are amazing. And I'll just want to share one last position. It's right here. Because up till now, I've had him do all the exchanges. And this is, my next move is bishop takes b6. I finally initiate an exchange. Why? Because I'm not so much concerned about improving my position as I am tactically going to win a pawn. What do I mean? By forcing the exchange, take, I can now play queen to d7. This pawn's attacked. He can't defend it with this guy because then the knight's going to hang. He's losing material. At any point, I could be threatening to move this knight as well, because then that's going to expose the rook discovery onto the knight. It doesn't work in this particular position because he can recapture with the rook or the queen, but it's an idea he has to think about. But again, specifically, I'm winning a pawn. The game didn't last much longer. Here I'll just zoom forward. He made a random move. Sure, why not? Exchange, exchange. And then finally knight f7 came. There we go. Not a bad finish. But that's not really the important part about the game. The reason I remember this game is that it seemed to me that I got to a really good position, especially if we can go back here. This position's equal. I used my process. I was not thinking, I could exchange, play knight d2. Maybe the knight's better on d2 than it is on a3. But I really wanted to keep the tension. And I used that to guide the rest of the game. And look how my position, it just slowly got better and better. Let's do one more. Wonderful. His pieces are chaotic and random and sleeping, and all mine are amazing. Because I kept the tension throughout. It was my opponent that constantly released the tension, and as a result, it was my position that got better and better. And then eventually I was able to use that for a tactic. So that is tension, how I understand it. Every time you release the tension, you tend to lose potential in your position, and your opponent's position gets a little bit better. Now this isn't an ironclad rule, but it's a very common observation. And so when in doubt, try and keep the tension. This is one of the ideas that once I learned, again, applied in games like this, it really improved my play. So hopefully it will do the same for you. So if not, blame Matt, because he made me do the video. I'm only slightly kidding. So if you want to do the standard YouTube things, like, subscribe, comment, I don't know what else is good, make sure you do that. That'd be fantastic. If you have questions, let me know. Otherwise, it's SmithyQ, and bye for now.